Quotes about war. Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. We will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God. Franklin D. Roosevelt. In peace, sons bury their fathers. In war, fathers bury their sons. Herodotus. I hate war as only a soldier who has lived it can, only as one who has seen its brutality, its futility, its stupidity. Dwight D. Eisenhower. The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it. And one path we shall never choose, and that is the path of surrender, or submission. John F. Kennedy. It is incumbent on every generation to pay its own debts as it goes. A principle which if acted on would save one-half the wars of the world. Thomas Jefferson. We shall defend our island, whatever the cause may be, we shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets, we shall fight in the hills, we shall never surrender. Winston Churchill. The object of war is not to die for your country but to make the other bastard die for his. George S. Patton. You must not fight too often with one enemy, or you will teach him all your art of war. Napoleon Bonaparte. I must study politics and war that my sons may have liberty to study mathematics and philosophy. John Adams. The military don't start wars. Politicians start wars. William Westmoreland. To be prepared for war is one of the most effective means of preserving peace. George Washington. Older men declare war. But it is the youth that must fight and die. Herbert Hoover. War grows out of the desire of the individual to gain advantage at the expense of his fellow man. Napoleon Hill. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired, signifies in the final sense a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. Dwight D. Eisenhower. If we desire to avoid insult, we must be able to repel it. If we desire to secure peace, one of the most powerful instruments of our rising prosperity, it must be known that we are at all times ready for war. George Washington. All wars are follies, very expensive and very mischievous ones. Benjamin Franklin. I have never advocated war except as a means of peace. Ulysses S. Grant. Build me a son, O Lord, who will be strong enough to know when he is weak, and brave enough to face himself when he is afraid. One who will be proud and unbending in honest defeat, and humble and gentle in victory. Douglas MacArthur. Battle is the most magnificent competition in which a human being can indulge. It brings out all that is best, it removes all that is base. All men are afraid in battle. The coward is the one who lets his fear overcome his sense of duty. Duty is the essence of manhood. George S. Patton. It is my conviction that killing under the cloak of war is nothing but an act of murder. Albert Einstein. When the war of the giants is over, the wars of the pygmies will begin. Winston Churchill. Once we have a war, there is only one thing to do. It must be won. For defeat brings worse things than any that can ever happen in war. Ernest Hemingway. Men of sense always learn from their enemies. It is from their foes, not their friends, that cities learn the lesson of building high walls and ships of war. Aristophanes. War will exist until that distant day when the conscientious objector enjoys the same reputation and prestige that the warrior does today. John F. Kennedy. There will one day spring from the brain of science a machine or force so fearful in its potentialities, so absolutely terrifying, that even man, the fighter, who will dare torture and death in order to inflict torture and death, will be appalled, and so abandon war forever. Thomas A. Edison. The art of war is simple enough. Find out where your enemy is. Get at him as soon as you can. Strike him as hard as you can, and keep moving on. Ulysses S. Grant. The soldier above all others prays for peace, for it is the soldier who must suffer and bear the deepest wounds and scars of war. Douglas MacArthur. War is to man what maternity is to a woman. From a philosophical and doctrinal viewpoint, I do not believe in perpetual peace. Benito Mussolini. The Establishment Center has led us into the stupidest and cruelest war in all history. That war is a moral and political disaster, a terrible cancer eating away at the soul of our nation. George McGovern. The Secretary of Hygiene or Physical Culture will be far more important in the cabinet of the President of the United States who holds office in the year 2035 than the Secretary of War. Nikola Tesla. If there is not the war, you don't get the great general. If there is not a great occasion, you don't get a great statesman. If Lincoln had lived in a time of peace, no one would have known his name. Theodore Roosevelt. Motivational quotes about war. We hope for your support, in the form of likes and comments. Thank you for watching and listening. Please subscribe.